Let's talk about the vampire's story that rips off the resurrection of the just. Now, before we get into it, please like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. Uh, it never occurred to me, of all of the years of seeing different vampire movies, that simply is a ripoff of the resurrection. Now, as believers, we have a hope in the resurrection. That one of the blessings that God is granted us as sons of God, that we will have a body. Now, the term resurrection it means body stand. In other words, your body is going to stand. So whenever you use the word resurrection, always keep that in mind. And there is a difference between being resurrected and then being raised. Jesus or the scriptures uh, recounts several people who have been raised from the dead, but their bodies were not resurrected, meaning that they came back to life. God brought them back to life, but then later their bodies, they ended up dying. The resurrection, however, is a eternal change in your body. We call it the glorified body. Now I'll come back to that in a moment. But as I was watching this movie called Sinners, and then it just kind of dawned on me that, okay, the vampire story is really just a ripoff of the resurrection. Now, the movie Sinners is kind of very interesting. It's a blockbuster hit. Not sure why it's called Sinners. As you watch the movie, you can certainly see why it's, where the sinner part come in, and then it develops into a vampire story. The movie opens up in I think it's Clarksdale, Mississippi, in the early 30s, and you have the two twin brothers that recently returned from Chicago with a lot of liquor and money, and their aim was to start a juke joint that they hoped to be profitable. Now, juke joints are just simply clubs. In smaller towns, they are called juke joints, and probably back then, I can remember the town that my grandmother is from, and I have a lot of family in Arkansas. And in these small towns, usually on the black side of town, there's a little section where they called it the streets. Like in the weekends, we're going to go down to the streets. And down in the streets, we may have a couple of juke joints, just simply clubs. People meet, dance, drink, smoke, and that's where the sinners part come in. Dancing and debauchery usually come as a result of it, and a lot of drinking and all of that. So that's the kind of the idea of the juke joint, and then probably where the sinners part come in. The story evolves around a young man by the name of Sammy. Now, a lot of people think it's about the twins, Michael B. Jordan's character, but the reality is about Sammy. The movie starts and ends with Sammy, and he's clutching this guitar. And throughout the movie, you will rarely see the Sammy without his guitar, whether it's in the opening of the movie, the damaged guitar, and then later on you see why it's damaged, and then to the very end where it ends with him with the guitar. And then, so what happens during the movie, at the first half is kind of introducing the setup for the juke joint, the setup of the characters. And then right around halfway, we're introduced to we're introduced to a vampire. His name is Remick. Now, there's some other themes in the story that I'm not going to get into, the kind of Jim Crow kind of racial themes of the story. But we're introduced to Remick, and as you can see, the white couple holding their guitar and banjo, okay, he turns them, okay, they're members of the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, he turns them. So right here, it's what's interesting, again, about the vampire story. Now, when we see the couple, they look nothing like this. You don't see any instruments. But then all of a sudden now, you see them cleaned up. You see them, after, the first time we see that the husband there with the guitar, he's all bloody because he's been bitten in the neck. But now you see him clean. Now that kind of the vampire story that they're that they're the power of the vampire will kind of regenerate them, make them young. Okay, so the same thing, but both of them, they are turned, and now they are vampires. But here's the interesting thing: now they're playing instruments that. Where did they learn how to play the instruments? And for that matter, where did they even get the instruments? But that the story doesn't tell that. Now the lady that's sitting by now the guy that's sitting on the stump there, the wood, his name is Remick, and then Mary is one of the love interests of one of the twins. So he's talking with her, and this is the scene where he turns her, he bites her, and then he turns her. All right. Now keep this in mind that all of a sudden now, once you become a vampire, your body is changed. You like now they're playing instruments. How did they even know that? Now there's another thing about, as we'll see in a moment, that there's a kind of a hive mind going on. But the main thing is that they have supernatural abilities. Okay. Then we see this scene after she comes back in, she's bitten, and now she's going to turn him, who was the love interest. But now she turns him, she bites him, and this is where the movie ramps up. But she bites him, and then he turns, okay? And as the movie goes on, you see that other characters are turned, but they become, again, super human-like. And then we see this scene where all of the people in the club were turned by Remick. He's the lead vampire. And they actually are singing this Irish song, Rocky Road to Dublin. And then everybody's singing it. Notice they're actually doing this Irish jig song, Rocky Road to Dublin. Okay. The reason I want to see that is that once they become bitten, okay, that Remick is showing supernatural. Like, for example, he virtually flies, okay? He has the power to turn people. And when he turns them, their bodies change. And now what you see with them, with this crowd here, all of them, their bodies have changed. Now, the drawback is they can't go out in daylight. Now, when we see Remick, he pops out of nowhere, like he's been flying in, he pops out of nowhere, and it's in the daytime, and he's actually smoking. So they can't. The real drawback is they can't go out in the daytime. Okay, but if you kind of go back, you can even ask yourself, what's really bad about being a vampire, other than you can't go out in the dark? Now there are some weaknesses, like okay, you as the story goes, holy water, garlic. You can be stabbed by a wooden cross in the heart, then you die. And you kind of see all of that in the movie. What I want to focus on is, notice the body part where your body is changed when you're bitten, as they show in this movie. When you're bitten, your body is actually better. Now you can see right here, they have memory, they have appetites, as you can see here. Now, of course, with the movies and telling stories, you don't know the actual feeling, so you don't know actually what's going on, what's actually being felt. Are they cold? Are the bodies warm, cold, or whatever? But anyway, what I'm saying is that you see how being a vampire from this perspective, if you kind of weigh the pros and cons, it's not that bad. You can live forever. It is believed that uh, Remick, I think his name is, had at this time been around for over 1,000 years. But the end of the movie, we see the two that we just saw. Okay, so we see these two. He's getting ready to get turned by her, and then at the end, here they are, some 60 years later. Look at this picture of youth, right? And they're vampires. Now they can't go out in the dark. I mean, in the daytime, but they're vampires. Now, this is why I say the story, the vampire story, rips off the resurrection, and it rips off, um, it rips off what God has promised us, that we have a better promise, because the resurrection that we have, darkness won't hinder us. In fact, the term resurrection means body stand, but also it is an everlasting glorification of our bodies. And the promise that we have to look forward to won't be like vampires. It won't be like, we could have to hide from the sun. And we get glimpse. Now, I'm going to say there is no indication of sexual appetites, but there's certainly some of food. And we get that glimpse of Jesus' resurrected body where he actually ate. So my point is that vampires, the kind of whole thing about the vampires is ripping off God's promise to us as his son's glorified body that we will have forever. It won't be flesh, but yet these will be body but glorified. And the story of the vampires ripped that off. I just want to pass that thought on. But okay, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. And I'll see you in the next study.